It's time, and we have quorum, so we'll go ahead and hopefully Kelly will join us. Go ahead and call the meeting of the Riverfront Commission to order. Looks like first up on the agenda, we have the April minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the April minutes?
So moved.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion second, do I have any discussion? All right, all those in favor of approving the April minutes, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Approve the April minutes. Next up, let's talk about the focus group.
Yeah, so we just wanted to go ahead and just share with the group that we had held our focus groups. That last month or the month before? The month before. It feels like it was
Time
just last
flies.
month. And just kind of allow like Dee and Gwen to kind of give an update on where we're at currently.
Should I take it?
Yeah, go on.
Okay.
We're usually.
We met as a follow-up group after we met with all the tenants to kind of talk about what we want as a product. So this is Kent Pilcher from Estes and his employees who will be doing some of the hard numbers. Kyle Carter from the Downtown Partnership and staff and Gwendolyn and I. So where we are is that we've kind of determined that we would like to see from the output of the meeting a 1 to 3 year plan, which would result in capital improvements, basically, and would be costed out. So as we listen to common themes, even though we're doing so much at the Freight House, a couple of the common themes were they don't have enough electricity. They can't put in another appliance, all the breakers break. So there are some of these things that are landlord related that we want to make sure that we capture. We have an idea of what the cost. There were some also ideas that are more long range, not a 1 to 3 year, but maybe a 4 or 5 year, which is, what would an enclosure of the west side of the Freight House look like? A 3-season kind of thing, not one that would cause, to sprinkle or any of those kinds. What would be the cost? What would have to happen if we could make that a 9-month space that could actually be retail? So it's a combination of those things for us to take a look at and then kind of decide, kind of how we want to approach that in a capital improvement way or in any other kind of grant way. In terms of looking for grants or looking for partnerships here on the riverfront. Some of the longer term things that we saw, and I think we need to keep on our radar, is how do you, I don't want to call it advertise, help me with this, how do you show that this is kind of a district within itself? Like what is the signage that could happen there, maybe on River Drive, right? And so those are more long-term, how do you work with it? So it's some planning ideas. So that's what they're gonna work in. We're gonna maybe take a look at a first cut to make sure what Kent's staff is putting together numbers kind of reflect what we think it should be. And then we're hoping that July, August, that we would have a product here for the commission. And that would definitely be in time to kind of put that all together and decide how we want to approach, the next couple of years in terms of the Freight House and where the packages, house is. Basically that restaurant we determined is in great shape. And I see that, we have a sublease, but really if you go in there, it has everything you need to be a business and in fairly good shape. I mean, their needs are really handicap accessibility is their most wanted or needed as a landlord. But that should come after I don't know where we are exactly on the FEMA project in terms of making the permanent flood wall around the building. But that should come after that is accomplished.
Question.
Yeah.
So they've toured through that facility with you, right? So do they have ideas or thoughts on what they think should happen or not?
really, this is why we call it a focus group. Really, it came out of the tenants. What their needs are now, what their shortcomings in the building, how they could be more successful.
Okay.
And then how they thought they could grow their business, in terms of being there.
Okay.
So, the sublease, is that, whoever is that the, is that gonna be for that? Yeah, I'd be curious to get, their feedback maybe after they've been in for a couple months as well. Just because with, the Tasty Ethiopia, beautiful space, and they did all those improvements themselves, and there wasn't a lot of, kind of necessarily investment from the city on that, but, I wasn't sure if the lack of feedback was because the space was so nice, or because they're kind of dying down, so they're not necessarily looking for or having ideas. So I'm curious what maybe a new tenant and fresh eyes.
Oh, yeah, I
Would
think,
have to
absolutely.
say, about that space, because, yeah, that basically they're like, no, everything's great, which is fine, but also they're not gonna be open that much longer, so.
Yeah, they didn't have like the overhead, HVA leaking on a tabletop. I mean, that's not happening in the package store. That's happening in Antonelli. So there are some issues. Some, I think we can address literally with our operating budget that can make it go away. But these others are more long-term. And especially, I think the real issue is electricity. That is internally probably the biggest one, and the bathrooms. Some windows, but not as bad.
Yeah, those are pretty basic, electricity and bathrooms.
Well, we could have had roof, we're gonna have roof, we're gonna have windows, I mean, we got the big ones like coming up to be taken care of, so. What we're trying to do is just see what else is left and what again can make them profitable, make the freight house, I think is kind of, it should be going forward for the council of like, oh my gosh, we have this thing happening here. How do we connect other things to it? How do we connect the riverfront on the east side to what we have here and we have at the ballpark? How can we make this piece complete? Knowing that, we have our little anniversary of LeClaire Park and in the band shell, and we know that that's gonna be there, but what then happens?
Yeah, I'll just say that I left that meeting feeling really invigorated and excited about all of the possibilities and the input, just because the focus groups really represented a broad spectrum, everything from city staff to Riverfront Improvement Commission to our tenants to local business owners to Downtown Davenport Partnership. And so I just think that it was a really great representation of people who are truly invested in that site, and just some really, really cool, fresh ideas that I think sometimes when you're there day in and day out, you don't always think about that, or you don't get to see that. And so hearing those ideas from Kent and his team, and from Dee and Gwen and Kyle and the tenants, it was just really, really, really cool to hear and see. So I look forward to seeing that development as we move forward.
Up next, new business, the marine specialties addendum.
So I know we had talked about this last time, but we wanted to bring this before you. So, one of the things that is common when we renew a lease is, at least the last few leases, we have done a 5% increase. So we went ahead and, Marine Specialties took a 5% increase last time. However, just due to some internal things, they had asked for a 1-year lease. Well, things are going really well, and so they would like to continue that lease for 2 more years. So we are asking basically for an addendum to keep the rental rate as is, because they already received a 5% increase this last year, and we would just like to continue this for 2 more years. So that's really what we're asking for today.
I think that's reasonable, very reasonable. So I would move that we do that. I do have one question. The building right next door, is there any use for it? I mean, for us, it's a liability, staying vacant. Is there any use for that building? Do they have any use for that building?
I have not talked with Chad seriously about if they specifically or he specifically has any use for it. It doesn't mean that someone else couldn't have use for it. I would be more interested in looking at building code just to make sure it's in a place where we are good to rent that facility out. I think as of right now, we have since, removed some of the heating and, almost like winter-proofed it, if you will. So I would be interested in looking at some of that and just making sure it's up to code before we do anything with it.
Yeah, and what modifications could be made to it, because, it was office and I guess some living quarters up above it. It's a whole different ballgame if the south end could be opened up with an overhead door and you could, put boats inside of it, it's a whole different use. But structurally, I don't know, I haven't been inside of it.
I think the commission, not the tonight, because, and this is fine, but we need to determine, like, if you have a building that the person next door that has a fence around it doesn't want it, it's only a liability, yes. What are we doing with it? We gotta find some future for it. So
Yeah.
I think that needs to go on our to-do list of thinking.
Totally
What
agree.
happens here?
All right, so do we have a motion to approve that one?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? We have all right, up next we have termination.
So I think this is an opportune time to introduce you all to Jim Levine. Jim Levine, he's our interim CFO and, actually even before.
Finance director.
Finance director.
You got a promotion.
But even before working on the termination of this lease, Jim has actually been helping me for quite a few months, helping Steph and I work through some of the leases to get them just, I would say, in order and consistent, and we really appreciate, just Jim's expertise in revenue and revenue development for our leases, so that's been very helpful. He has actually, helped us work through this with legal to review this particular lease. So this lease would terminate the Taste of Ethiopia, lease giving us the opportunity to then sign a new lease agreement with, I Love Fufu? Yes. Yes.
It's African cuisine. It's very similar. I don't think it's necessarily Ethiopian, but it's African.
Same audience.
Yes,
So, totally different owners?
yes.
Completely different owners.
And that's because the Taste of Ethiopia just things weren't working out.
No, they're actually retiring.
Oh, they're retired?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, he's retiring.
They're trying again, right?
This was a
This,
definitely passion project.
the new owners for I Love Fufu, that's a unique name for sure. Have they had other businesses?
They do. They actually have a business in Iowa City right now. So we've done some research into that and looked at that. It's pretty successful. And then they love this area. They have a really good relationship currently with the owners of Taste of Ethiopia. So just finding that it would be a natural fit and a really good transition. They love the riverfront, love the opportunity to be on the riverfront. So we're excited for them. We are proposing a 1-year lease, so we would recommend a 1-year lease for them, just to, see how it goes. And build that relationship with them, but we certainly would love for it to go well, and we'd like to continue more with a 3-year lease in the future.
So with this termination, is this effective immediately?
No. So it would actually be effective, what is it? July 1.
Do we know when they're gonna close, just for my own dining curiosity?
I don't know.
I think they had said June 30th, but I can certainly clarify with them when I call, so everybody can make your reservations.
So are they selling their property to the I Love Fufu? I mean, the lease will be different, but I mean, their own
All the fixtures and
businesses,
things.
yeah,
I believe so.
all the
It is, yeah.
fittings and and all of the stuff that's their business.
it's sort of turnkey, which is helpful.
Yes.
So I just have one question. I see in the termination, you discuss the payment of property tax, which I understand. In the new lease item, show me where property tax is handled for the year. I'm just not finding it. Or is it? Is it in the lease payment and we're not doing it?
I don't think there is a separate section.
Utilities.
We will find it for you.
Or get it added.
We'll get it added.
Yeah, it's so confusing. I don't know if they get billed for property tax or.
There is something here in miscellaneous, so that would be on page 11, section 32.8. But it does, I would agree that it doesn't clarify like what those property taxes are, so we could certainly add some additional language in that section if you would like us to.
Well, it would be good for them to know, like, what payment they're gonna pay in July. And I forget, do they get it billed directly, or do we give it and then we bill them? They're all over the place, but.
Well, they are all over the place.
Okay,
You know,
we're
like,
gonna
it'd
try
be
not
good
to have them
some
all over.
consistency. Some people are paying the direct and other people we bill on a monthly basis. So, yeah, to get that more consistent would be beneficial.
I believe right now, as it stands, the current owners are being billed directly, but we would like
Yeah,
to.
yeah, I think that they are getting billed
Yep.
directly from the county.
Yes.
And then they're paying it
Is
directly.
this an opportunity for us to take this to us and bill them?
Yes,
Oh, yeah, we could do that. Absolutely.
because that would be more consistent with the way that we're doing it for all of our other tenants. I believe this is one of our only
We're trying to
outliers.
be more consistent, we should see what we're doing with all the others.
Sure.
For me.
Right.
We pass it on, but them getting the bill and they don't pay it, then.
Right, yeah, I would think as property owners, we would be paying that bill and then
Well, that's why we want
prorated
it,
into their monthly
Yes.
rent, yeah.
Yes,
So-
everyone else we've gotten taken care of. I think they're the only ones left, actually. So we can definitely work through that.
I'm not impressed.
So would we want to,
Want me to motion to terminate, do the first one?
yeah, let's go ahead and terminate the first one.
I'll move to terminate the Taste of Ethiopia lease.
Second, for a second. Any discussion? All
We
those,
should include a well wishes along with
of
that.
course.
Congratulations on your retirement.
I know. By spending some money down there. All right, all those in favor of terminating the lease, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? And then with the new lease, do we want to make some kind of addendum that we would outline the cost of the property taxes or, sorry, can you,
So
how have we been evolving to, they have been outlined on the new leases or?
So on the new leases, we include the property taxes, from our perspective, and we bill them internally. So we could add a statement in the miscellaneous section under 32A that clarifies that, and then to Dee's point, what the cost would actually be. Now, the cost does vary from year
Right.
to year, so we want to be really careful.
No, you just want to put the first one.
Yep, because
And
it's a
then
new
say in the
year.
future, we'll be divided
Because
over
aren't they
12
paying,
equal
aren't they
payments.
paying March? No, they're gonna be paying this September, which one are they paying?
The March one would already be paid, it'd be
Right.
the September one that they're,
We won't know that one.
right.
Yeah.
Well, and
If you just put the date of the September one that they're gonna get, yeah, and then take out that they have to keep themselves informed of it if we're gonna be getting it.
Yeah, the termination with Taste of Ethiopia provides they're
Yeah.
paying property tax for the period of April 1 through July 1, basically. So, yeah.
So they'll have a prorated piece for July and August. So I'll try the motion because I do a lot with conditions on the ZBA. So I will move to approve the lease to I Love Fufu for 1 year with the condition that we break out the cost of their rental, their monthly rental to include, their tax burden from the city.
So a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Any abstentions? All right, excellent. Fresh meat, I love it.
I know.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Up next, Heartland Healing Space.
So, Steph, do you want to chat about this one?
Yeah, so we had been reached out to by Shelley of EME Designs back last fall, I believe. And she had some interest in what was formerly the Heartland Healing Space on the second floor of Union Station. She is interested in acquiring that space in addition to her current space to use just kind of for additional storage needs. We've since had Steve Ott also reach out, so there is a lot of interest in that area. We let Steve know we would be kind of working with Shelley first to add that in. So kind of our big question right now is her lease does not end until
October.
I believe it's October. So we could create an addendum with this new space, or we could ask her to hold off until October. It's kind of up to the commission. If you'd like to start renting that space out now, we would create that addendum to the current lease. Otherwise, we can hold off and just create one lease with both spaces in October.
I'd say get the revenue.
I would too,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, not to.
So the finance guy was like, yeah,
Yeah.
No, we would,
Right.
Yeah.
right.
So the one thing that I would just ask for clarification on for everyone's sake is, I would be interested in kind of bringing before you all, what everyone is paying per square footage. I think this is a good time to maybe review that on the second floor level. So we've ran those numbers and I know that we shared that, it was quite a few months ago. So I don't think everyone's had an opportunity to see that. So I would ask Steph if she could kind of share that with you all. And then, kind of just get some clarification on making your decision that way. So that way, if you are just hoping to, like I said, just add that onto Shelley's lease based on what she's currently paying per square foot through the end of October and then reevaluating at that time, that's something you could think about. Otherwise, you could think about increasing, if everyone else is paying a higher percentage per square footage, you could think about increasing for that particular parcel at a higher rate. So there's a few things for your consideration, but I think that it would be good to at least bring you the information and have you make an informed decision, and then we can go from there.
when did Heartland Healing leave?
They left, I want to say they probably.
Did they have a rate increase at all?
Did they have a rate increase?
I'm just thinking if they have a higher rate, then we would want, budget-wise, we would want these months to be what they had,
Right.
at least.
I don't know if they did. I want to say they left in July, maybe.
So if you could check that
Yep,
and tell us
absolutely.
when you're giving the dollar amounts, that'd be great.
Well, couldn't you just do a whole new lease with them that includes all of the square footage that they want and then just kind of, take the next 6 months under the terms of the current lease, but then fold it into a renewed lease that lasts for longer than a minute?
We could create a whole new lease for that particular parcel if you all wanted to.
Seems less complicated to me, but that's me.
Yeah. We have a few different options, so we could definitely look at that.
I'll plan to send this out tomorrow via email for everybody to review.
And they're good tenants.
They are good tenants. We're lucky. Union Station has some really great tenants.
Just a quick second. And up next, the farmer's market business plan.
Yes, so I sent that out last week. I did not include it in this packet, but I am happy if anybody needs a hard copy, I'm happy to print out one. They had sent forth the business plan that they've been working on for that currently vacant space at the Freight House. I did not give her a timeline as to when she would hear back from us. So what I would recommend is that everybody takes the next month to kind of review it, gather your thoughts. If anybody has questions, I'm happy to reach out to Missy for any sort of clarification. And then I think at our June meeting, we can have kind of a more formalized discussion once everybody's had the time to look through everything and spend a little time with it.
I think what's lacking in the proposal is, while they talk about having food vendors, how much food? Can somebody really shop there? What's their hours gonna be? These community kitchen, what, is that what we did, 10 years ago? And it didn't, I mean, that whole idea of vendors, you can come and do the kitchen, all that failed on the other end. So I think we need this space as we're spending this money in the capital, that it is occupied. That the idea that it's dark from 3 o'clock on or 4 o'clock on, or it's open, not even open during the day, or it's not open at night. It's not hours. I mean, they're talking about a grocery store, a community. While I read and see this in farmers markets and lots of other places, I don't think we're looking for a grocery store in this section, so and we're not helping youth. I'm not sure what this is and the hours being spent. What's the facing? If I was coming down and I walked down that way, will I be able to open the door and will I be able to buy something? What are those hours and what will I be able to buy?
Wouldn't this be in our plan that we talked about earlier about the 1 to 3 or maybe long-term? Or maybe it should be a more immediate, maybe in the 1 to 3 year plan about what we want to do with the Freight House. Wouldn't that be part of that? What exactly are we gonna do with that space? Aren't we talking about that kind of dead space there on below the diner?
No, this is where there were 2 restaurants prior. It was its space was a restaurant, that's what it's been.
Yeah.
And we're talking about going from a restaurant to more of a grocery store, front, activities, meetings. I mean, then it's closed off, the idea, one of the tenants, a few of the tenants like the idea that you can go from one business to the other. Well, it's closed between the Chill and Front Street for obvious reasons now. That's gonna be remaining a wall, and so really, we have like 2 types of buildings. We have the farmer's market that's on the weekends, and we have this it'd be nice to know what this is in terms of hours and what it's going to do.
I read through it as well, and the thing that struck me is a real lack of specificity on many issues, and not the least of which is, what is the business plan? This reads like a, introduction to a grant application, but there's no, okay, these are precedents that we've looked at, here's the research we've done, what other farmers markets have done, and what model we're following, or how we're adapting that to Davenport. Or there's no, this is a revenue stream for current, this is how we see it increasing or improving or affecting the revenue stream, year 1, year 2, year 3, and usually it's a 5-year business plan when you write a business plan, isn't it? And that's, and there was, it sounded wonderful, and it sounded like there was something in there for everybody that had a need, but I didn't see any evidence about how that was going to actually be a business,
Yeah,
and that's
you said it better than I did. It's kind of like, what do we get here?
Well, I was gonna say, even if it's the best plan ever written, is that what we want for the area? How does that tie into upstream, downstream from there? What the experience that we want to have on the riverfront, is that what we want it to be?
and without their specificity, it's hard to know whether what they want is what we want.
Do we know what we want it to be? And maybe we need to start there. And I don't know that we do.
The door opens and there's business inside of some sort, which, food, entertainment,
But I think that's
I
a bigger
struggle with some
question
sort,
of,
yeah.
like, if you look at the Riverfront master plan, right? And all the different experiences you have, Main Street Landing. It's like, okay, so Union Station and the Freight House are two key elements that can bring together that experience. And you could say, well, maybe that's entertainment, maybe it's retail, maybe it's restaurant, but that's a very scattershot, I think, approach. If you say, we want this to be this type of vision experience that enhances the other investments we're making in the city, this is what it looks like. And we're looking at just those two parcels, just to start. And you say, okay, this is what we want to attract. I don't think we'll have a question or an issue of attracting it. I mean, if you're looking at the Freight House and you say, hey, we want something that's gonna be here and have more and bigger hours. You could look at something like the Reading Terminal Market in Philadelphia, where they used an old train station and they took all the farmers market, and this is what they did, they moved it all inside so it could be year-round, aside from any inclement weather. And people have big parcels. I mean, there's butchers, there's chocolate makers, there's everything like that. You say, okay, if that was the vision, right, we're gonna double down the farmers market, then maybe you say, well, what would be a different vision for Union Station and the Freight House? And what would that look like if we have people coming in and tourists, right? Or you say, no, this is gonna be a nightlife area. And then that's going to be restaurants and, other things like that. But without that vision, like, how do we pick and choose? And how do we use the investments we're making to enhance what we're already doing in the city?
Do we have a needs assessment, like from the Downtown Partnership or anybody that has done any kind of needs assessment for
So
the?
actually, I think this is a perfect opportunity for us to scooch into our work session approval. So Andrea and Dan actually came to Stephanie and I and kind of had these questions for us, just kind of like what we're talking about now, just like vision and what is some long-term planning? And this is a really great time to start having some of those conversations. And so Andrea, I don't know if you want to just kind of, and Dan, kind of share like what you shared with Stephanie and I and how you want to propose a work session outside of this, right? Because I would say the biggest downfall that Steph and I have is we only get 1 hour with you all a month, and that's so hard. I think we all have some really cool ideas and some really great things, but instead of just managing the day to day, kind of like what we do on the regular, we really like to start thinking long term. So yeah, they just had some really great ideas about how we could start doing that.
Yeah, I'll start and then you can add in detail. So part of it was just like new guy asking questions and making an offer. I know more about the riverfront from the dam upstream. Cause I'm a boater and that's also my ward, that's where I live. So I'm like, hey, I'd be happy to kind of be the point of contact for the staff to, the commission on the properties, upstream, and what we're doing with those marine specialty and so on and so forth. And then it kind of grew from there, and we're like, well, what we maybe really need to do is have this think of it as experiences. What's the experience like for a bicyclist? What's the experience like for a jogger, for fishermen, for whatever? And how does each piece of property then tie into the next piece of property that, and we can direct that. So then Andrea had the idea, and I'll let you go into the detail of us, maybe different people volunteering to say, hey, I'll be the champion for this piece of property, this district of the river, this zone. And then each person have a different chunk of the river that they're, the main focal point for them is just that piece. Like, I don't know that much about the Freight House. I don't know that I want to know that much about it. I mean, I do. I have questions about the Freight House, like, should we even own it? Or should we even be managing it? Or maybe we own it and then we have a business manager, but that's probably a different discussion. But that's not my strength. I know where my strengths are. So anyhow, I'll let you take it from there, because you had more written up on it. but-
No, it was just more of, you think about the riverfront, there's the big nines, we got these 9 miles. So it's like, if you chunked everything out, you said, okay, Mountain Street, Lindsay Park, and then Oneida Avenue, and kind of those properties. And then you go River Heritage Park, and then you go Main Street / Freight House, Union Station. And you keep going down all the way, and you see, it's not just the city development around those areas that have green space and parks and things like that, but they're city-owned properties, that how do we avoid this kind of pock thing of like, oh, this person wants this space, sure. And it doesn't have this visitor continuity to, if I go from this end to this end, because we all love the river and we want to capitalize on the fact that this is a differentiator. So if you have someone coming here or someone in town spending the day on the river, can I go from place to place? And that's an experience in and of itself.
This is a great example, right? Heritage Park, boats, pictures being taken a certain direction. So we're trying to, and we're reimagining the city as a river destination. If you take the picture the other direction, there is already mixed plan. It's not the most attractive thing on the river. It's not a destination, it's not a go-to. Does it need to be on the river? I know they receive some materials via barges, but they don't have to. It can be trucked in as well. So what do we want this to look like upstream, downstream, as a river destination area?
And what's going to, I mean, in my mind, it's like, what's going to help generate more revenue for the city in addition to enhancing the riverfront with all the properties that we own? I mean, if you think of, what was it, Oneida Street? Like where Delu is? That, there's an empty parcel on that facing River Drive, plus two big
Yeah.
parking lots that are very functional. It's like, if there was a vision, granted, this is not turnkey, but if there was a vision, maybe that would be an investment, that would be a new leasable property that you say, hey, we want to encourage restaurant retail, which then helps the hostess building maybe move forward. Like, and now that becomes a little destination hub, and then you move downstream to River Heritage Park, and then you move downstream and so on and so forth. So we're not suggesting that we have the answers for that, but I think we feel
Well,
like.
and it's hard to, like I said, we do this 1 hour, hour and a half a month, and that's never been a solution to anything. But if each of us had an area that was our focus, and we were the point of contact, and we spent time on, and then we just tie it in with, I know she's got the property downstream, she's the property upstream for me, and I work with them. And hey, what's the big picture for the whole riverfront? And then how do I fit my piece into it? And then I can spend time on that, and I can think about that, where I can't think about the entire 9 miles and come up with a plan for all of it. And we can't solution it here in an hour. So how do we eat that elephant? And this is just an idea we came up with.
Planning, I think, and I really, I love what you're thinking about. I think planning is one of the bigger issues of the commission. I mean, we did a Riverfront West plan, so there are a lot of basis plans. The city and the city staff have looked at a lot of areas that are jointly looked at the commission, and that, I'll be really honest with you, as a change of staff right here, my fear was that we wouldn't have planning staff available to us. And so, I mean, you speak to what we're gonna be missing now. And I don't know how, I think as Gwendolyn maybe as chair, that discussion. Because the staff has, I mean, there is a lot of history along a lot of the riverfront. And while, the idea of advocate and knowing more, maybe taking a lead or an expert, but there are a number of parcels, all the ones that you have talked about have been discussed and proposed and looked at. So maybe we have to step back with all the new members and take a look at that. But we really need, I guess, to help us lead us through a little bit more. Courtney, I hate with you going, it's just like I'm really not feeling good about this. And Jim, I like you, but you're a money guy, and I don't want to focus on just the leases. We need to kind of figure out where we want to be. And you have good, I mean, what I think is really, really good, what you said. And I think what I was enlightened about by the freight houses, they don't believe they're in the downtown. They're like, we're a destination upon ourselves. And they really are. I mean, people from the downtown don't go and have lunch or go and few have a beer, but people who go to the freight house from all over. And they may not visit any other part of the downtown. And I think, my 40-some years, unfortunately, that's kind of been and it's 9 miles, and it's, other than the bike, that kind of coordinates, and some recreational sites, it is a bit disjointed in terms of that, and some things appeal to a tourist. Coming to a grocery store at the Freight House, you're not gonna get a boat, I go on boats, you're not gonna get a boat person to spend $145 for their day trip to show up at a farmer's market thing. It's just not gonna, those things aren't gonna happen. So, but I do think, a work session where we can maybe review some of all those things, I think might be important, because I can tell you have a lot of great ideas. And you can probably add a lot of strength to our group here, for sure.
I'm trying to remember, the last time that we did like a strategic plan.
Dan
And it
Ebner.
was with Dan
Yeah.
Ebner, and I thought it was right when you started.
That's,
It
that's,
was, yeah.
yeah.
So I
that's
don't know how long have you
I
been
was
on
gonna say,
now?
don't,
Well,
I'm not trying to
about
put you on the spot. but-
7, I think I'm up in, next April, I took a 2-year term,
Okay,
so I think I've been on 7 years.
so.
So we
yeah.
did it, and yeah.
It's been a while.
But out of that came the River West Plan, which was really looking from the train bridge down, all the way down. And, we didn't get traction on those things, big things like, you talked about the concrete company, which was an interesting one. But on the other end, it was, we should be buying these properties. This is the bike path to Muscatine. This is the number one thing. We should be looking from Credit Island down, every opportunity there is to be able to build, to get us all the way, and get those in the CIP. Basically, we wanted, some money in there for like 100,000, that when something got flooded and the person wanted out, we had enough money to come in and go, we'll buy your house. So, but those all have to come back out and kind of look. Some are-
And I like that. But I want things to not always just be a cost, but to be some areas to help sustain themselves. And I think one example I threw out was, staff reported last month that the docks for Credit Island are damaged enough that we can't just fix them and put them back out so they're not going out. But, what if the docks were funding themselves? What if we had the docks out there and then we, leased space there in Credit Island for food trucks, so then boaters would come in, or people from the park would come and use the food truck. So now the food truck lease money would generate some revenue. So instead of having a financial drain to repair the docks, there'd be money generated for that purpose to maintain that area, and the docks are paying for themselves. So it'd be nice to get, we're not gonna pay for everything, right? But to have some revenue generation, so everything's not just a cost, but more of a balance.
And Parks would kill me for saying this, and I know I'm on camera, but Dan had a great idea too about, like, he was like, even at Credit Island Lodge, like, wouldn't it be cool to have canoes where you could go rent them out of the lodge, and like when it's not in use, and I'm like, oh, like, I got super excited about
That's
that.
been tried.
That's, I'm like,
Used to have that?
Yeah,
I'm like-
was absolutely tried.
yeah, I was like, those types of things, like. and I
When
they-
was that track? So right now kayaking is just through the roof,
It is.
right?
It's been a long
So,
time.
and you kayak in the backwater, the slough part of it between Credit Island and South Concord, and I think that it would probably
And I
work.
think, I'm sure that in the past, there have been some really great ideas, and the timing of the idea maybe just wasn't ideal. And, or maybe, the funding wasn't fully there, so it was a kind of a half-baked situation. And so I think we just want to try to look at that big picture and say, what's something that we could tell everybody we talk to, everybody we run to, that's a story of like, here's the whole vision of you could do this and this and this. And it's like, build that organic support. And then also have the infrastructure to say, okay, if this is all going to be restaurant, we know that we're going to need grease traps and we're going to need this type of electricity versus a dress shop, right? And then you can have some forward vision of, yeah, we kind of do know how much this is going to cost, and not always be on the back foot with it.
Right, yeah, if we want all those spaces to be restaurants, then we absolutely need to make the investment to get the utilities upgraded to meet that demand. It was like, well, no, we don't want it all to be restaurants, and matter of fact, we want it all to be dance studios, but we, just throw that out there for something weird, but we don't need that much power.
Right.
We don't need electricity for dance studios, right? So what is it that we want out of it? What is it that the city of Davenport residents want out of it? And then focus in that direction. So mostly this has just come out of questions because I'm still learning what's what, so I have more questions than answers, but I want to try and help solution it as well.
Well, I like Kyle's idea to, maybe revisit our strategic plan or kind of get,
I think you should definitely send it out and let everybody read through it before you have another session. And I definitely think that you should have another session. Nobody, right, I think Kelly and Dee were the only two, including the staff.
Good one.
You guys were
No.
here 7 years ago?
No.
yeah, I was here for the.
A lot of it, remember the strategic plan, and I think it's.
Were you just starting too?
We just look so young.
We were,
Okay, good.
Or still less than half,
That's
whatever the
good.
number
Yeah,
is.
so
It's
less than half, but, okay, so.
And it was the first, we did this because the council changed
Yeah,
the
so it's
commission.
reconstituting.
There
what
was
the commission was.
yeah, we were concerned that we weren't even viable. We weren't even, what are we here for?
Yeah, but so let me, can I just say though, this is really important because I wouldn't say that was very successful.
Yeah,
All right, now part of it was, we had some working groups that were going and got stopped by COVID, right? And they never really picked up after COVID, so there's a little excuse. But, again, you gotta understand the history of the Levy Improvement Commission, now the Riverfront Improvement Commission, and how you used to have revenue that came in, and you used to be able to spend that revenue to improve the levy, okay? And I would love to figure out how to get back to that point, okay? Because right now, when you come up with ideas, okay, just like, the Credit Island, portion, River West, it didn't take off because the council didn't support it. There wasn't enough support on the council. And so if you don't figure out a way to get more revenue, you have to figure out a way to be better advocates to the city council. And everybody on here represents a person, right? And you should be meeting with that person and advocating for riverfront stuff. And when you come up with a big idea, you need to be pushing your council people to support it. And I'm not shy about saying this. For the last several years, we have not had councils that really view the riverfront as an asset. Okay? And I'm frank about it because that's the way I see it. And so I think part of it is saying, hey, you picked me to represent you. And I'm going to these meetings every month and here's the things we think we should be doing to improve our riverfront. So that's my soapbox speech about what you guys do. But I love new energy. I want the Riverfront Improvement Commission to improve the riverfront because I believe it is our biggest asset.
So do you guys have that strategic plan or whatever those
So
documents are? Or-
we would be happy to send you all the previous strategic plan and then the River West report as well.
Yeah, it was all part of one sort of,
Package. So we'll make sure that we send that out. But really what we wanted to do is, I don't wanna let this fruit sit on the table. I wanna make sure that it gets some gumption and moves forward with at least setting a work session. I think that's really, really important. So I might ask Steph if she would be willing to send out like a Google Calendar or something of that nature to the group so that we can kind of get a date in mind. And this work session would be outside of our normal meeting. It's not required that you attend. Certainly it would, we want everybody to attend. We want all the ideas, we want all the thoughts, but I don't wanna leave Andrea and the rest of the group hanging because I think there's some good forward movement and I'm excited to see that move forward.
Would that include a facilitator?
Possibly. I think that, to be honest, Andrea does that for a living. So,
I would say though, I wouldn't want,
to have you do it because that would limit your ability to participate,
Yeah.
which I think is super important.
yeah.
So I mean, I think I would.
Hard to do that.
Right, I mean, I would say that maybe we start with like an initial work session, kind of see where we're going, and then if we need to recruit somebody as we move forward, I don't see why we can't.
A work session of just giving us all in the
So we know-
same
So we know what
background,
we have, right? I don't know.
I think would be really helpful.
Exactly.
And then maybe Jim and Steph could work with some of our planners and maybe even bring in a planner
Sure.
too.
Yeah.
That would be good. I'll ask Laura for a favor.
Well, great discussion, guys, thanks. All right, up next, Main Street Landing update.
Yes, so that would be one of our future business. So we would ask Director Dyson to come in and kind of give us an update on where we're at with that. And then also
With Main Street Landing, is that what we're saying?
yes, with Main Street Landing. We haven't heard on that one in a while. And then something else that I was just gonna suggest that we get an update on from Clay is the FEMA update. So I've had a lot of questions on that one. That would be the Fairgram study that we did. And last that I had talked to him is we had secured the funding. And so that's where we were at with that one. But I haven't heard anything in terms of actual movement on that facility and the plans on that. So I would ask that we get an update on that because it's kind of been sitting for a hot minute and we don't want to forget about it. We certainly won't forget about it, but just want to make sure that gets movement.
I'm thinking if we receive the money, we would go back to Fairgram, right? Because they did some initial to do the construction documents.
I would think so, but I would
Yeah.
want to double check.
Yeah.
Yes.
Joe, since we're on Main Street Landing, and I don't want to speak for him, but I think Kyle's been one of the strongest, if not the strongest advocate for Main Street Landing on the council for quite a few years now. And maybe you can give us an update from your perspective of where is Main Street Landing?
So Main Street Landing they're putting together the construction documents, okay? So we paid a few $100,000 for those construction documents. Those construction documents will come back to the city council this late summer or fall to be voted on by the city council. I believe if we vote, I don't know if it's gonna take one or two more votes.
Well, that's an ARPA project, correct?
It is.
Yeah, so those funds have to be obligated by December 31st of this year, so that, yeah,
You have to have all your contractors
Yeah, it's-
hired.
it's gotta move fast.
I don't know if it'll be one or two votes, but it'll come back to the city council, right? And you would think $24 million none of them are coming from the city of Davenport, that it would be a slam dunk. But,
Yeah.
I don't know that it is a slam dunk. Again, I think this is something that the Riverfront Improvement Commission needs to come out and show their support for, the park board too. It's a pretty big deal. And then if it gets approved here this fall, then construction would start next year. And it's my understanding that construction would be done in the spring of 2026.
So Kyle, just because I agree with you, it would be really great to be advocating for this. It'd be really helpful to know what we're advocating for, though, in sort of like an easy, like, here's the menu sort of look, you know, so that it's
Haven't
easy
seen
to
it.
talk about and say,
There's-
this is what we really
Okay.
believe you ought to be doing, city council.
Is this from your meeting?
Parks knows. Parks, they presented us renderings,
Okay.
not this month, but the previous month, so I don't know why they aren't showing it.
And
Yeah, it's
that's
like a
why-
top secret. I don't get it.
It's not, I promise it's not, but this is why we put it on here for future business. I really think that we need to give Director Dyson the opportunity to run it through with you all and kind of give you the facts, and he's very good at it. This is what he does, so,
It's impressive.
yes.
Okay, my opinion, it's impressive. And I've kind of tried to hold that project to a high bar. The other part of that is, you know, there is an idea of trying to raise more money, okay? Not that the product that you're getting is subpar, just that there's additional things that you could go out and get if we got private dollars to come in on it. So there might be an opportunity there to help.
But what we have the construction plans are being prepared right now, isn't that pretty well funded?
Absolutely. Yeah. Listen, the project is fully funded.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what blows my
But they
mind.
still have to approve the
We've been
construction
spinning our
document.
wheels here for dead time for like 2 years now almost, it seems like. Well, COVID was a factor,
They
obviously.
had to design it.
Yeah, but it's been talked about. I remember going up on the Sky Bridge and looking at the charts, and that was how many years ago?
It was just last
That
year.
was last year.
What?
But,
Oh,
yeah,
it's like-
no, I get, yeah, I've been with you.
I know.
from December.
So there are some great renderings that can be shared. The technical documents, I mean, this is really how you build the thing. You make sure that the assets are out of the floodplain. How does the pedestrian bridge actually meet the grading and all of that? So they're working the technical documents. But I agree. Chad and Clay
Yes.
could give you
Zach.
and Zach could give you a 30 to 45-minute presentation.
Yeah.
And, you know.
And that's what fires you up to get motivated to talk about other things, is when you can see things that are gonna happen. I mean, that's what really motivates you to go out and talk about it. And to
Yeah, and
get,
I think it's puzzling, why is it so hard for us to get that?
yeah.
I mean, I just,
Yeah.
I know that there are stages, but
We
the
should be right on
renderings, the renderings have been around, right? So it's
Yes.
not like we couldn't, if we want this commission to be an advocate that's got energy and is doing things, it needs to be one that's not always the last to know.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm not trying to pick on anybody, it's just, but that's one of the things that slows this group down being successful advocates. It
And that's
really
what we
is.
talked about,
Yeah.
if it's 7 years ago, how many years ago? That was our big concern when we went through that strategic planning deal. What are we doing?
If Parks has the renderings, I feel like we ought to have the renderings.
So,
And I brought that up 2 months ago.
Why are we on the back burner? We should be on the
I
front
mean,
burner of what's
I
going on.
think it's a high-level decision that's being made that this isn't public yet. They don't want it in the paper yet.
But we're not.
But we should, RIC should,
Body.
well, no,
Is that
if it's
really
at
the
this
case? I mean,
meeting,
aren't the renderings on the City of Denver website as part of the business?
I don't think so, but somebody could do a freedom of information request. We could do, RIC could do a freedom of information request to the city.
so, all right.
I know it's not, but that's silly. That's where we're
All
at
right,
though.
so,
No, that'll make headlines. We don't.
okay.
But that's a silly situation.
If I could just interject and say that what you have, I think, would be considered work products. They have been out since I think I was shown them at the middle to end of February. I agree with you. If Parks saw them, you should see them, absolutely. I think part of the issue with showing the pretty pictures when they're work products is people look at them and they go, that's what I'm getting. And then if that's not what you get, that becomes an issue, okay? But I agree, you guys need to see them. It sounds like next month Chad will be here and Clay, to give you that presentation and hopefully, you'll know more by that time as well.
And what about the city council, the ones who may or may not be waffling a little? I would think that would be exciting for them to see these things and say, hey, wow, this is really exciting. This is the development that we've been looking for a long time. I mean, it might get them over the hump to be a supporter if they see them. When is the time frame for
I
them?
mean, I hope so, Bill. I can't speak for my colleagues.
But what I'm saying is,
There's
one thing is for sure, if they're still in the dark, they don't really know what's gonna be
So-
down there, they're not probably gonna vote for it.
Let me also say this. City Council has a scheduled Tuesday session. In my opinion, the person who went out of line here is probably the Parks Board. They shouldn't have seen them first, but this sometimes becomes an issue where who sees what first and
Yeah, well,
get
that's-
upset. But the council hasn't seen it either, right?
We don't need to see it first, we just need to see it at some
I agree,
point.
I agree.
At some point, you know.
So,
want to see it soon enough to have time to actually be an advocate.
yeah.
Because
Yes.
if we see it the same week as city council, is gonna vote, then it's sort of like, we haven't had, we haven't had a chance to talk to our people about it. And so it's just trying to figure out how we could get into a better loop with that.
Yeah. So, yeah, so we need to, we just, personally, from us down, I'm with Cal 100%. I mean, this is just something that we need to really have on the front burner, not the back burner. Because that development area right there can lead to a lot of people coming down to our riverfront on a regular basis, all year round, not just in the summer. It's got assets to it, they're gonna be used year-round, and they will, I guarantee you, it will encourage further development on the riverfront from a private sector in combination with the city, if we can get it going. But keeping it in the dark and nobody, we as a commission, for heaven's sakes, group that's supposed to be an advocate, we don't even know about it. So I mean, to me, that's backwards.
And I wasn't trying to get Chad in trouble here. I mean, I think he's the one in the right in getting the information out as soon as it's beyond some level. I mean, not,
We'll get it out next
So yeah, if we could look to get that on the agenda for next month, that would be great. Okay, thanks, guys.
Then we could take the next
All right,
step
thanks
out
for the
into
discussion, everybody. Up next to the management update. Tell us all the things.
So do you have anything that you wanna share this?
Yeah, I have just a couple quick things. We had our first Big Nine concert on Saturday. Big thank you to Scott. He came and spoke both on behalf of the RIC and then as one of the friends of Vets Memorial Park. I think the weather both helped and hurt us in that it was so beautiful that everybody wanted to be on their boats. But we probably, over the course of the concert, had, I would say, 50 to 75 people. I am hopeful that with word of mouth, that will continue. I sent out a big long list in my last email of all the places we've been publicizing. But please just tell your friends. If you have questions, let me know. I'm living, eating, breathing, sleeping this concert series right now. So any questions you have, I am happy to share. I will say everybody that was in attendance seemed to have a really great time. The band said they would love to come back and play for us again. They were excellent. And it really was a really good opportunity to work with Common Core and also see how they kind of promote some of their stuff. So that's giving me some ideas as well. And then my only other thing is our cruise season starts next month. June 24th is our first cruise. I reached out to both cruise lines today, just to kind of say hello and see if they needed anything. And both my reps are out on vacation right now. So getting their vacations in before the cruise season starts. Makes sense.
How many total cruises are we gonna have?
There, I believe we've got 20 total. Yes, it is a pared down season this year. We knew that, I think even before I started my job, that the season was gonna be lighter. Some of that is, routing. With, I believe Viking is doing, some different routing this year. And so that's just less stops here with us. But I believe there's about 20 of them. I'm happy to send out the schedule.
I just wondered.
Okay, it will be going on the Riverfront website within the next week, so you're more than welcome to check that out as well.
Anything from you? You're hand the torch.
Yeah, well, thank you for welcoming me, and I look forward to working with you guys in the future. Stephanie can send out my contact information if you guys ever need to contact me regarding anything, feel free to reach out, so thank you very much.
Welcome aboard.
Yeah.
All right, up next, Chris, tell us we could talk about Parks and
now
Recs.
that I'm as is my way. We had our spring trolley tour for Parks Advisory Board last month, so we had about a 5-10 minute meeting in here, and then we headed out on the trolley and saw progress on things. We drove out to the new community center out by the Fairmont Library, which is getting very close. We saw the new Dose spray ground, park, playground area near Hayes School, which I would urge people to check out. It should be done in the next few weeks, and it's gonna have stuff that we haven't had around here before, like the soft pour-in-place, cushy thing, but like up the side of a hill, so kids can like roll and fall and slide down the hills, and then it kind of flows right into the spray ground area. It's kind of one of our most advanced parks, I think, until Main Street Landing gets going.
Chris, is that where the pool used to be?
Yes, that was taken out a couple years ago because it was leaking and they can barely staff 2 pools.
Yeah.
So that was just kind of the weakest link. And then they wanted to make a huge spray ground, but there are codes and whatnot that if it's so big, then you need X amount of bathrooms, and at some point you need a bigger pump house. They would have had to, there was a notch where it got real expensive, so they had to basically make half of it a year-round playground, which has its own upside, and then half of it be a still pretty big spray ground. And then the pool house with the bathrooms and the pump area and the chemicals and stuff, that's all still integrated into that, the existing, pool house, so. I haven't been past it for a week or since our meeting or whatever, but it was progressing right along and I would suggest checking it out. And then I did see, that wasn't on our tour, but the Credit Island, new playground earth is moving and things are happening and equipment's stacked up and so that's getting close. And then we also checked out the new Cork Hill playground and spray ground, which is nowhere near the riverfront, but like 9th and Iowa type area. That's actually gonna be a pretty high-end spray ground. And before they basically had like a stick with a water spout on top, it was like the smallest spray ground in the city. And now it's gonna be pretty nice. And the playground there looks really nice. I'm excited to get my kids down there. And then I'm trying to think where else we drove around to, but, I think that was the main part of it. We didn't hit any riverfront stops, I don't think, so nothing right up this group's alley.
Now, can you advocate for maybe asphalt on the section of gravel going into Credit Island so we can ride our bike on something?
I mean, I don't know that anyone's against that. I would imagine
It's not a very big section.
yeah,
I mean,
hopefully they were just
equipment-
waiting for the flood. I will pass that along, but maybe they were just waiting for spring flood season to get past before fixing it.
We just need a bridge, Dee.
Right, I mean, that's the real answer, but that's gonna be a while regardless, so. No, I'm, as a cyclist with a narrow tire bike, I'm right with you, so I'll pass that
You know, I
along.
need my contacts in with my sunglasses on, you gotta see.
I just wonder if they're making sure we weren't gonna have a spring flood before they put asphalt down to potentially be swept away, maybe.
Advocate for us, would you?
Yeah, I'm a cyclist.
Thanks, Chris.
Yep.
All right, I don't see any public business. Any other thoughts, hopes, dreams? Courtney, we love you. We're gonna miss you.
Yes.
And you've been such an asset and advocate, and Jimmy, you got big shoes.
I know, I do. I know. Courtney's great, so I'll do my best.
But yeah, welcome on board, and we'll miss you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll just see you on the riverfront.
Yes. There's a lot of really, really cool things happening on the riverfront, so I'm super excited to, like, even Red, White, and Boom this year, I'm just super excited to, like, be a participant and bring my family and my kids.
You're like, I'm gonna be so relaxed.
So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you.
All right, well, we'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.